Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mariah from TechServe Alliance. Welcome to today's webinar, How to Set Up a Record 2020. There will be a question and answer session after the presentation, so feel free to write in any questions you want answered in the question box on the right side of your screen. We are also recording today's presentation, which will be available to TechServe members on the TechServe Alliance website and will also be sent out in follow-up emails. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Barb Bruno. Take it away.
Okay, thanks so much, Mariah. And I have to congratulate all of you because I know this is a very, very, very busy time of the year. And so I appreciate that so many of you are on this call. But what we're talking about is how do you set up a record 2020? Because during the end of November, beginning of December, and all through this month, that's what you and I are doing is we're setting up next month. You know, we don't want to walk into all of a sudden January 3rd and go, gee, we're here, and what should we be doing? There are things that you've got to do starting now if you want to achieve a record year. It's not enough to want a record year. You must take control and make it happen. And I think pretty much all of us in this profession, we have kind of controlling personalities, but yet in our annual income and goals and that type of thing, often we leave too much to chance. So I want to walk you through a step-by-step process that will hopefully show you how to set up a record year. Let's start it with a gap analysis. The gap analysis is extremely important because what it does, it's a strategic planning tool, and it helps you understand where you are, where you want to be, and how you're going to get there. There's a simple 5-step process you can follow when conducting a gap analysis. I filled out a sample that we can review just to give you some idea, and I've also given you blank gap analysis pages at the end of this, and so you can sit down and really look at various areas in your business, working your desk, you know, whether you're a recruiter, a salesperson, an owner manager, you know, all of you can take those gap analysis and really decide, where am I now, where do I want to be, and how do I get there? So step number 1 is you're going to determine the topic that you're going to complete the gap analysis on. So say that this is something, and it has to be a challenge that you're trying to tackle in 2020. In this case, the topic selected is increased revenues. And so the gap analysis sample topics include, we're going to look at revenue, we're going to look at market share, and we'll look at the services we offer. Step number 2 is you're going to identify where you are right now based on metrics or the attributes that you bring to the table. So you might say, okay, example is revenue is 42,000, market share is 2%, services, we're currently focused on contract staffing. That's what you do. Step number 3 is you want to identify where you want to be over a specific time frame. I know many of you are looking to increase direct hire this next year. And so the example could be that I'm a recruiter. I did 42,000 last year. This year, I want to do at least 100,000 in direct sales by the end of the year, and I want to have 10% of a market share rather than 2%. And the services, I want to generate direct hires by 3/1/20. So I want to have my first, direct hire fill before the end of the first quarter. Step number 4 would be now we have to identify the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So obviously, when you look at revenue, the gap is 58,000 in annual sales. The market share is the gap is 8% because you're currently at 2%. You want to get to 10%. And the services, the gap is additional clients, additional marketing presentations, and revenue modeling to know what direct hire business to target in 2020. And if you want to know what revenue modeling is, I think revenue modeling is so important for all of you to do before the end of this year. I want you to go back 2 years, and I want you to look at where you made placements and fills and look at all the information around that. What was the industry, what was the title of the job, what was the pay rate, bill rate, or what was the salary if you're doing direct, what was the fee percentage, or what was the margin for contract, what was the duration of the contracts, and who pays you the fastest. Because what you're trying to do is understand what your best business is. Your newest clients in 2020 should mirror the best clients you have right now. And revenue modeling, what's good about revenue modeling is you're not reviewing where you wrote business. You're reviewing where you filled business. When I was at the TechServe conference this year, I had so many people come up to me and say, Barb, we are writing so much business, we're not filling even 5% of what we're writing. And so there's reasons for that. Maybe you're writing things that are not what you do. Maybe your business is all VMS, where the return on your investment of time is going to be much lower just because of the numbers involved. And plus the margins are lower. One of your revenue generator, things could be for this next year, trying to find clients that are non-VMS, where you've got, contact with the hiring authorities. That would be a great thing to do a gap analysis on. And so now we're looking at, okay, what are we going to do? What's the gap between where I am now and where I want to be? And then the last step is, how do I fill the gap? I've got to get the names of the people who handle direct hires from my current contract staffing business. All the clients that are hiring contractors from you are hiring direct hires. They might not be doing it from you because they view you as a contract staffing firm. It's the same with direct firms. A lot of them, their clients are hiring contractors, but unless they ask for the business, they're viewed as a direct hire firm. You might roll out a client referral program to reward them. Consider donating to a favorite charity of your current contact if they identify the person who hires direct hires. Once you make a placement, you donate to their charity. Start with 3 job titles. Interview 10 candidates with each title to build a pipeline of direct hire talent and obtain leads while you're interviewing them. Determine 50 targeted companies. Contact them 6 times in 9 weeks. So now at the end of the second month of 2020, you've got companies that know who you are and what you do. You want to revise your LinkedIn profile to review who you want to be and write and fill more direct hire orders. That would be the way to solve the one issue that we identified that we wanted to do, and that was increase direct hire revenue. And so you saw how we identified the problem, and then we looked at where we were now, we looked at where we want to be by when, and then figured out the gap, and then went into how do you fill that gap. You've got to set precise goals for yourself. Your company is going to set goals, but it's important for you to set goals. If you had a record year in 2020, what would that mean for you and the people that you love? Because the truth of the matter is, if your owner wants to have, a record year and, for the company, that doesn't mean that you want to have a record year. If you're trying to send your kids to a private school, you want to buy a new home, you want to take a vacation to Europe for a month, whatever it is that you want to do for yourself and the people you love, that's what'll motivate you. And what exact income, would you earn if you attained your goal set? You got to ask yourself very specific questions when you're setting goals. Like, what will you buy? Where will you travel? Where will you live? What car will you drive? Where do your kids attend college? If you have children, how much money will you have saved? Unless you have a clear picture of what's in it for you, you can set goals, but you probably won't achieve them. What I think is sad is so many recruiters set goals, and then when their owner tells them to set goals for the next year, what they do is they pick out the goals for 2019 and they cross off 2019 and put 2020 because the goals were good, but they didn't attain them. And so it's really important that when you're setting your goals, that after each goal you set for yourself, you put 5 action items that are dated. And when you do those 5 action items, then you know that you've attained the goal. And if you can't attain the goals you put down within 5 steps, 5 action items, you might have to switch the goal to 2 goals rather than 1. You also want to make sure that any goals you set for yourself in 2020 are SMART goals. And any book you read about, setting goals, they always come up with the acronym SMART, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, and time-sensitive. If your goals do not have these 5 criteria, they won't happen. You will not achieve them. So specific, what exactly goal do you want to accomplish, and how and why will it be accomplished? So again, what's in it for you? Measurable is how are you going to measure it, whether the goal has been achieved or not. Achievable is it possible? If you're doing $1 million in contract staffing, sales right now, you can't put a goal of doing 5 million next year. That's too big of a leap. But could you double your production? Of course you could. Every one of you listening to me could produce more. You could be more successful. It's not a matter of can you, it's will you, because you can't work your desk the same way and expect different results. You got to shake things up and do things differently. So what are you going to do differently next year? So it has to be achievable. It can't be pie in the sky. Results oriented. What is the reason, purpose, or benefit of accomplishing the goal? What is the result of the goal? And, a lot of us take care of everybody. So not only what does it mean for you, what does it mean for the people you love? And time sensitive. Unless you put a completion date, there's no sense of urgency. So when you set a goal for next year, and you're going to, I think you should have 10 non-negotiable goals with 5 dated action items under each goal. And the goal should be toward the results of your gap analysis. I just showed you how to do a gap analysis. You're going to look at what is that gap and what goals do you have to attain to fill in that gap. Goal setting is mandatory if you want personal and professional growth. Think about your goals and then commit to them. Your future is determined by you. You've got to make it count. You write your own paycheck. Your owner doesn't write your paycheck. You do. Determine the production level you need to attain your income goal. And then set activity levels. What results do you need every single day? What activity level do you have to put out there so you get the results? How many working days are there in each month? And calculate what your production goals will be for each day, week, and month. And then the important one, and the commitment. You got to commit to the results you need daily. If I've got to interview 4 people a day, if I interview 3 today, I have to interview 5 tomorrow. What are the results that you need based on your stats to consistently hit or surpass goal? There's no mystery in what we do. It's a numbers game. You're in sales. You got to know your stats, your ratios. Share your goals with everyone you need, in your office to add accountability. Share them with your manager, your owner, your coworkers, so that you're holding yourself accountable by sharing them. And I would write them down and have them posted right where you work, where you see them. If you're in sales and you're in outside sales, have them in your car, have them in the mirror where you get ready in the morning. Write your goals down, date them, and again, place them where you can see them as you're making your calls. And I'm not telling you as you're driving to be reading your goal set, but they should be in your car. They should be by your desk. They should be where you can read them and see them often. I'm telling you, all the top producers that I coach, and I coach many of them, they always want to attain a new level of success, and they're willing to change things. Now, I want you to learn to focus on the most important numbers. And because often it's a little overwhelming when you look at all that we do every day. So let me give you the numbers that are most important. And these are the numbers that should be when you're talking about the results you need every day. You can do a lot of activity that doesn't really provide you with results or production. You can be really busy. It's not the person that works the hardest that is the most successful. If you don't work hard, you're setting yourself up for failure, but it's not the person that works the most hours or works the hardest that makes the most money. It's the person that knows where to focus. So let's talk about that. If you want to have a better year next year than this year, the first number I've got there, the send out total, increase that every month and your income will increase every month. My definition of a send out is a candidate in front of a client first interview. It could be Skype, it could be webcam, it could be face-to-face, it could be phone. I don't care how the interview is done, but it's a first interview. And again, once you send somebody on a first interview, when they go to second, third, fourth interviews, I don't count that as a send out. My definition of a send out is first interview, and increase that number every month and you will have a record year. The number of interviews you schedule, you've got to know how many send outs you have to book. What is your send out to fill or send out to placement ratio? So how many interviews do you have to do every day to get the number of send outs that you need to close the deals you're going to close? How many presentations do you have to do? What are the numbers of job orders or contracts that you have to write? How many send outs do you have to book first interviews till you end up in final interviewing processes? And do the send outs that you're booked. Is this where your company has a history? If you're new, it's very tempting to want to write your own business and fill your own business if you're working a full desk. But you want to work on the business where there's a history, where they hire you, they pay you on time. You want to work where whoever wrote the job order or contract, they have a strong client relationship, because more candidates will get booked, more hires will happen when there's a relationship. You want to make sure everybody's pre-closed, both the client and the candidate, because we're dealing with human beings, and absolutely positively they change their mind. And number 9 is extremely important. You have 3 candidates on final interviews. If you start out with 4 or 5 candidates, and by the second interview you're down to 2, you want to backfill it. You want to have 2 to 3 people going in final interviews. That's when you close deals. Because remember, if you're only sending your candidates on one job, they're going on other jobs on their own. They're finding other contract opportunities and other direct hire opportunities on their own. So the formula that really works is 3 interviews for every candidate, 3 candidates on final interviews. Then you're going to close more deals. You have to backfill who's eliminated. When you learn how to set goals, and more importantly, attain your goal set, you will experience a higher level of billing income, and the job just becomes more fun. Our job is either amazing if you're hitting goals, or it sucks when you're not. There's very rarely anything in between. Now let's talk about 6 revenue generating strategies. Your owner is in business to make profits, and you're in the profession to create the lifestyle of your dreams. This can only be accomplished if the strategies you select all positively impact profits and income. For years, I wrote extensive 5-year business plans for my company, and I updated it annually, and I did my best to accomplish the goals, but I often fell short, and the plan was way too long, way too cumbersome. I now review my 6 revenue generating strategies monthly to ensure attainment of projected sales and profits. And so, I want you to you don't have to be an owner or a manager to think about what are the 6 things I'm going to do next year that are going to make money? What am I going to do different that's going to generate income? A strategy is defined as a critical success factor that drives revenue. So you may want to refer to them as initiatives. These are 6 ways you intend to generate more revenue in 2020. So document your current revenue generating strategies. What drives your production and your income right now? If you work in more than one segment or profession, separate the strategies for each segment. So if you're doing contract and direct, separate them out. Now review the list of strategies and do the following. What are you doing that works? And what are you doing that does not work? Because often we're doing things, it's not working, and we keep doing things the same way. And so you have to understand that, that's the definition of insanity, doing things the same way and expecting different results. You want to take the strategies that don't work and answer the following questions. Why is it not working, and what corrections need to be made? You then need to make a decision whether the strategies can be reworked or whether you need to kick them to the curb and replace them with a new revenue generating strategy. So you've got to stop doing the things that are not making you money. It's very important that you create space for new ideas by eliminating current ineffective strategies. So you can't keep doing things the same way that you're doing now and expect to have time to implement a bunch of new things. You might be sitting there right now thinking, I don't have time for all this. I don't have time to do a gap analysis or come up with revenue generating strategies. There's not enough hours in the day. Well, there will be if you identify what's not working and stop doing those things. Make a clear, concise commitment to the strategies that you're going to work on that align with your 2020 goals. So it's all about you. It's all about deciding, what will this mean for you? What will this mean for your family? What will this mean for your income? You all write your own paychecks. If you're looking at your W-2 at the end of the year and going, God, I thought I was going to earn more, you wrote it. Your employer is in business to generate a profit. They're never going to say, stop, you've done enough this month, go home. And so it's up to you to really figure out how you're going to achieve more. And like I said, first thing in this call, every one of you could increase your production by 25 to 30% very easily. All you have to do is do 10% more of every stat that I mentioned, and your income and your production will increase by at least 30%. But doing 10% more of everything that's working is not easy because you're on automatic pilot. You're used to doing certain things. That's why I'm saying it's so important to cut out the things that are not working. If you follow the advice in this webinar, you're going to set yourself up for a record 2020. And by all indications, I read everything that comes out from economists, from TechServe, from everybody, and 2020 is looking solid. And so there is no reason, if you ever find yourself pointing the finger, well, it's my niche, it's my geographic area, it's where our office is, it's, that I'm only doing contract or I'm only doing direct. Every time you blame something else, or the candidates just are not calling me back, or they're, getting a lot of offer turn downs, or they're accepting, there's all kinds of things you can blame, why production isn't increasing. But every time you point the finger at someone else, 3 fingers are pointing back at you. So I want to ask all of you, what could you do different to turn it around? Because we can't change what other people say or do. What we can change is how we react to them and what we're going to do differently to change the results. And like I said, you've got 100% control over how you react, and you have 100% control over what you're going to do different. And hopefully when you review, I really sincerely hope that you're all going to print out that gap analysis sheet, and you're really going to do a gap analysis, and you're really going to come up with 6 ways you're going to generate revenue this next year. Because if you do this now, you're going to go into 2020 very focused, and your results will change because you've changed, because now you're doing things differently. All right, that's our call for today. I want to open the lines now for your questions. You can ask me questions one of 2 ways. You can go to the control panel on your right, and if you put in the telephone number, PIN number, and access code, you can go to the attendee list, and you see that little hand that looks like a hand being raised. You can click on that, and I can open your lines, and you and I can talk one-on-one. Or if you'd rather go down to the bottom and rather just type in a question, you can click on the lower part of the control panel. You see the word questions. I always will use your first name. And so if you don't want me to use your first name, Not that anybody's going to know you because there's a lot of people on this phone, but if you don't want me to use any name at all, please put the word confidential or anonymous before your question. Now, your question does not have to be about this program. The reason I do these calls live for TechServe is TechServe wants to make me available to all of you at least once a month, so that if you've got questions, this is free consulting that is provided by TechServe Alliance. And so the other thing I would say to all of you is we're doing these calls because these also count for continuing education, for certification. If you know people that are not certified, we elevate our profession when individuals get certification. The study guide is phenomenal. The information I gave you today is probably 2% of what's in the study guide that you study for the certification program. If any of you are sitting there and you got level 1, is 2020. There's a lot of 2s in that date. Is 2020 the year that you take level 2? Because level 2 of the certification program is the same exact study guide, but now the exam is case studies. So you don't have to memorize, the laws and memorize the practical application of what you do every day, but you've got to know how to apply it, because we give you case studies and now you've got to apply what you learned to solve the case study. So level 2 exam is tougher, but wouldn't it be great to have level 2? Because many people have level 1, but not that many have sat for the level 2 exam. So again, why not have a differentiator that you can go out and market to your clients and candidates? The candidates you place all have certifications. And so why not show them that you care enough about your profession to do the same? So there's a lot of exciting upgrades going this year in certification. So watch for those announcements as well. I see that Dennis has a question, so let me get there. Let's see here. Okay, that one's not there. Let me get to, let's see. Okay, someone tried to put a question in, but there is no question. So if you're gonna go down to the question area, you've got to go down to the area and then you have to type in a question. Let's see, any suggestions on how to drop strategies that are not working if those strategies are determined by someone else? Absolutely, it's easy to do that. So say that you do the gap analysis and you're looking at what strategies work and what strategies don't work. So say I'm your owner or I'm your manager, okay? And I'm having you do something and you know it doesn't work. If you came up to me and said, Barb, I did a gap analysis. I was on the TSA call and they showed us how to do a gap analysis and they wanted us to look at strategies that work and strategies that don't work. And what I realized by doing this is we're doing something that's costing you money. It's not working and it's costing us time and money. If you come up to me as a manager or owner and you tell me that something is costing me time or money, you have my undivided attention. But you can't come up to me and say something that you're having me doing is not working, because then that puts me on the defensive. Then I'm going to think, well, but it's what we've done. And unless you give me why it's not going to work. But if you do a gap analysis and you realize some things are not working, then you got to stop doing those. Hey, this is from Jeff. When determining what works versus what doesn't work, I'm curious how you isolate that. A lot of the time, consumption is very administrative, sending calendars, confirming appointments, figuring out availability. But it does lead to starts, and it's important to keep doing. However, it doesn't work because it takes up a large amount. A second here. Trying to get the rest of the message. A large amount of time. It does have to take a large amount of time, but also if you're a top producer and you came up to me, again, as an owner and said, that is there any way that I would love to produce 50% more next year, 25% more next year, but I did a time study. And that's another thing you can do to figure out what's working and what's not working. Just keep track of everything you do during the day. And if you realize that 40% of your time is spent sending calendars and confirming appointments and figuring out availability, not all that stuff is important, but is it best use of your time? If you're a recruiter and you're out there trying to book interviews, no. You could have somebody else confirm appointments or figure out availability. So again, do a time study. How are you spending your time? And if you came to me, you're one of my top salespeople, and you come to me and tell me that 35 or 40% of your time is being spent on administrative duties and that you could sell and produce a lot more if I provided some type of support, believe me, you've got my attention. So I think that, you really got to, just study yourself from now to the end of the year. Look at everything you're doing, and figure out how much time is eating up. Then approach your manager or owner. And you might want to delegate some of those things. Let's see. I'm getting a bunch of holiday wishes and thank yous for the calls this year, and I feel the exact same way. Is the certification exam given at conference? No. The certification exam is given online. And so you literally could sign up for certification now and get access to the study guide, and you would be ready to take your certification before the end of January. I always suggest to everybody to read the study manual one time, just go right through it, then read the study manual the second time and sort of, put some notes where you see I'm really stressing something. There's also a prep class that you can buy that is something that we did where I'm giving you the key learning points of the certification exam, and it gives you a competitive edge to take the exam. But if you made the commitment right now to yourself, if you give yourself the gift of certification as your gift to yourself, and by the way, if I've got any owners on the phone, obviously it's a write-off. If you need write-offs before the end of the year, paying for certification is a nice write-off. Plus, I'm telling you that what I'm learning that I find amazing is that so many millennials are being certified because they see the value in training. They like the credential and they see the value in being trained. And so I love that many of you are backing the program. And it's great information. It'll make you better at your job. You want to make more money, get better at your job. Let's see. Do you do the prep class at conference? No, we don't anymore. The reason we don't do the prep class at conference is because you can't take the prep class online, and so, and there weren't that many people participating. And I'm sure if TechServe Alliance got a really big request from everybody saying, can you do a prep class at conference? I'm sure they would consider it, but we haven't done the prep class at conference for a couple of years. Now, I don't know what the plan is for Amelia Island. I don't know, but that's something you would have to check with TechServe about. And that's where the conference is next year, by the way. Amelia Island, I believe it's at the Ritz. And so if you don't have the date, look that up and put that on your calendar because their conferences are amazing, amazing. And that's something that if you set the goal that you want to increase your production by this amount of money to qualify to go to conference, that'd be a proposal as an owner I would love to get. So it's one of the strongest meetings. I speak at 25 conferences a year. TechServe is by far the best. Nothing comes close. All right, I want to turn the call now over back to Mariah and welcome Mariah as our newest coordinator. I understand that you're going to be doing these calls from now on, so congratulations on your job of being assigned program coordinator. And I don't know if you have any more announcements, but I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Mariah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Barb. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. I wanted to remind everyone that the recording and the slides will be available in the follow-up emails. And with that, everyone here at TechServe just wants to wish you guys a happy holiday and a happy new year. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.